I think I'm an adolescent boy.
Huh, and I'm an elderly man. And we appear to be in some kind of secret confined space.
Ever wonder what it'd be like to ditch your entire universe? Rick and Morty did just that in an episode that's like tearing a hole in reality itself. In Rick Potion number 9, our favorite duo crosses a line you can't come back from. We're talking about leaving everything behind, family, friends, their whole world, and slipping into the lives of their dead selves in another dimension. And trust me, that's not even the wildest part. This episode takes the show's mind-bending plot twist to new heights. Ready to have your mind blown? Let's dive in and see how deep this rabbit hole goes. Alright, so we're diving into Rick Potion number 9, and let me tell you, this episode is where things really start to go off the rails. We've all had crushes in high school, right? But Morty's crush on Jessica is about to turn into a global catastrophe. Morty's got the hots for Jessica, and he decides to ask Rick for a little help. Now, asking Rick for help is like giving matches to a pyromaniac. It's bound to end in flames. Rick whips up this love potion that's supposed to make Jessica fall for Morty. At first, it seems to work like a charm. Jessica's all over Morty, and our boy thinks he's hit the jackpot. But then, as the potion spirals out of control, things take a turn for the worse. The love bug starts spreading faster than gossip in a high school cafeteria. Before you know it, the entire town is infected. Everyone's going crazy for Morty, and not in a good way. It's like a zombie apocalypse, but instead of brains, they're after Morty's. Well, you get the idea. Rick, being Rick, tries to fix the situation, but each of his attempts just makes things exponentially worse. It's like watching a car crash in slow motion, except the car is the entire human race. First, he tries to counteract the love potion with praying mantis DNA. Why? Because praying mantises eat their mates. Solid logic there, Rick. But guess what? Now we've got a town full of praying mantis people who still want to get it on with Morty. Rick's next brilliant idea is to combine the DNA of all sorts of cold-resistant animals to create an antidote. Instead, it turns everyone into these grotesque, blob-like monsters that Rick dubs Cronenbergs. And just like that, the entire world is transformed into a nightmare realm of hideous creatures. Now, let's take a step back and look at what's happening here. We started with Morty wanting to get the girl of his dreams, and we've ended up with the apocalypse. This isn't your typical hero's journey where the protagonist overcomes obstacles and saves the day. Nope, our heroes have literally destroyed their entire world. This is where Rick Potion number 9 really messes with our expectations. Instead of saving the day, they've created a problem so big that there's no way to solve it. You know how in most stories, the hero's actions have consequences, but they ultimately lead to growth and a happy ending? Well, throw that idea out the window. In Rick and Morty, actions have consequences, alright, but they're the kind of consequences that leave you questioning the very nature of reality. This episode takes the classic sci-fi trope of be careful what you wish for, and cranks it up to 11. Morty wished for love, and he got it, along with the complete destruction of human civilization as we know it. It's a stark reminder that in the Rick and Morty universe, even the most innocent desires can lead to catastrophic results. Alright, so we've seen the world turn into a love-crazed disaster zone, but hold on to your butts, because things are about to get seriously messed up. Remember when I said this episode goes off the rails? Well, we're about to derail the whole train and crash it into a mountain of pure nightmare fuel. Let's talk about these Cronenberg monsters. They're not your average cartoon baddies, folks. Rick and Morty decided to take a hard left turn into David Cronenberg territory, and they went all in. Picture this: bodies twisting and morphing in ways that defy physics and biology. Extra limbs sprouting from places limbs have no business being. Faces melting and reforming like some kind of fleshy Play-Doh. And the eyes. So many eyes, all in the wrong places. It's like a biological Rube Goldberg machine gone horribly wrong. The sound design cranks up the horror to 11. Every squelch, gurgle, and bone-crunching transformation is crystal clear. You can practically feel the wet, squishy horror through your TV speakers. And the screaming, it's a constant reminder that these used to be people. Normal folks going about their day until bam, Cronenberg City, population, everyone. This isn't just shock value though. This Cronenberg disaster has real, lasting consequences for our characters. We're watching Morty's entire world fall apart in the most literal sense possible. His family, his classmates, his teachers, everyone he's ever known is turning into these blob monsters monsters right before his eyes. And let's not forget about Jessica, the girl this whole mess started over. Imagine watching your crush transform into a horrifying monster. That's gotta leave some emotional scars, right? It's a twisted coming-of-age moment for Morty. Instead of learning that sometimes love hurts, he's learning that sometimes love turns everyone into grotesque abominations. Talk about your awkward teen years. What makes this situation even more messed up is that our heroes caused all of this. Rick and Morty aren't swooping in to save the day. They're the reason everything's gone to hell in a handbasket. It's a gut punch of a realization, both for the characters and for us as viewers. We're not watching the good guys win. We're watching them desperately try to fix a problem they created and failing spectacularly. So what makes the Cronenberg disaster in Rick Potion Num 9 so shocking? It's the perfect storm of unexpected gore, emotional impact, and the slow, creeping realization that there's no fixing this. We're not just grossed out, we're unsettled on a deep, existential level. It's like the show grabbed our expectations, put them through a meat grinder, and served them back to us on a plate of pure chaos. Just when you think things can't get any more messed up, Rick pulls out a solution that's somehow even more disturbing than the Cronenberg disaster. Ever wonder what it would be like to literally replace yourself? Well, we're about to find out. Rick and Morty have royally screwed up their dimension. The entire world is overrun with Cronenberg monsters, and there's no going back. Rick's plan? Find a dimension where they solved the crisis but died right after. They're gonna replace dead versions of themselves. It's like a cosmic do-over, but with extra steps and a whole lot of emotional baggage. We're watching Rick and Morty literally step over their own corpses. That's a level of dark that even this show hasn't reached before. They're leaving behind everyone and everything they've ever known. Their family, their friends, their entire world, all abandoned in a hellscape of their own making. Morty's struggling with this decision, and honestly, can you blame him? It's some seriously heavy existential stuff for a 14-year-old kid to deal with. He's questioning the very nature of his own existence. If he can just hop to another dimension and take over another Morty's life, what does it even mean to be Morty anymore? It's like abandoning a broken mirror that reflects your entire life. Once you leave it behind, you can never truly see yourself the same way again. Rick, on the other hand, is disturbingly casual about the whole thing. He treats dimension hopping like it's no big deal, just another Tuesday for him. The way he instructs Morty on how to bury their own bodies is chilling. It's a moment that perfectly captures Rick's character. Brilliant, resourceful, and utterly detached from the emotional weight of his actions. This scene forces us to confront some pretty heavy questions about identity and continuity of consciousness. If you can just hop to a new dimension and take over another you's life, what does it really mean to be you? The show doesn't offer any easy answers. Instead, it leaves us to grapple with these questions long after the episode ends. The emotional toll on Morty is clear. We see him struggling to adjust to this new reality in later episodes. He's traumatized by what he's seen and done, and it fundamentally changes his relationship with Rick. It's a turning point for his character, marking the beginning of a much darker, more cynical Morty. This episode doesn't just push the boundaries of what we expect from animated comedy, it shatters those boundaries completely, leaving us in uncharted territory. It's about the profound questions it raises about the nature of reality, identity, and morality in a multiverse of infinite possibilities. And it does it all while still being a cartoon about a drunk scientist and his grandson. Alright, let's switch gears and talk about an episode that really messes with your head. Remember that time you walked into a room and suddenly couldn't remember why? Total Recall takes that feeling and cranks it up to 11. You'll never look at your memories the same way again. So the episode starts off pretty normal, right? We've got the Smith family sitting around the table, and there's good old Mr. Poopy Butthole joining them. Wait a second, who the heck is Mr. Poopy Butthole? Have we seen this guy before? If you're scratching your head, don't worry. That's exactly what the show wants you to do. Before we can even process this new character, Rick drops a bomb on us. Turns out there are these parasites that can implant fake memories in your brain. Oh, and they're shapeshifters too. Great! So now we're stuck trying to figure out who's real and who's just a parasite in disguise. It's like the world's worst game of Guess Who, where getting it wrong means you might get eaten by an alien. As the episode goes on, more and more characters start popping up. We've got Sleepy Gary, Photography Raptor, Pencil Vester, the list goes on. And with each new character, we get these heartwarming flashbacks of all the good times they've shared with the family. It's sweet, it's funny, and it's completely messing with our heads. You know what's really wild about this episode? We're put in the exact same position as the characters. We're trying to piece together who's real and who's not, just like they are. It's not often a TV show can make you feel like you're right there in the thick of it, but Total Recall pulls it off perfectly. And then we get to the solution, which is, well, pretty messed up when you think about it. The only way to tell if someone's real is if you have bad memories of them. That's right. If you remember them being a jerk or disappointing you, congrats. They're probably not a parasite. It's a clever twist, but man, it's kind of a depressing way to look at relationships, isn't it? So we watch as the family starts gunning down all these beloved family members who turn out to be parasites. It's funny in a dark, twisted way, but it's also kind of horrifying. These are characters we've grown attached to over the course of the episode, and now we're watching them get blasted into oblivion. But here's where Total Recall really gets you thinking. If our memories shape who we are as people, but those memories can be so easily manipulated, what does that mean for our sense of self? Are we really who we think we are? Or are we just a collection of memories that may or may not be real? And let's not forget about poor Mr. Poopy Butthole. Spoiler alert, he turns out to be real, but because the family doesn't have any bad memories of him, Beth ends up shooting him. It's a brutal reminder that even our real relationships can be based on false perceptions. Alright, so we've covered some pretty wild episodes, but let's talk about one that really takes the cake. Remember when I said things could get messy at a space wedding? Well, the wedding squancher starts off innocent enough, but by the end, you'll be questioning everything you thought you knew about Rick and his family. The Smith family gets invited to Bird Person's wedding. Sounds fun, right? But this is Rick and Morty, so of course things go sideways fast. Everything seems normal at first. Well, as normal as an intergalactic ceremony can be. Then, boom, we find out Rick's actually a wanted criminal across the entire galaxy. Talk about a bombshell. This reveal changes everything for the Smiths. Suddenly, they can't go back to Earth because it's now a Galactic Federation outpost. One minute they're enjoying alien cake, the next they're space refugees. Rick finds them a tiny planet to hide on. So small he literally calls it Tiny Planet. Not exactly 5-star, but when you're running from space cops, you can't be picky. This is where things get intense. The Smiths are pushed to their limit. Jerry wants to surrender. Beth's torn between her dad and a normal life, and the kids are freaking out. It's like their whole world is imploding, leaving them scrambling in the cosmic debris. But here's the kicker. Rick, the guy who's always looking out for number one, does something completely unexpected. He turns himself in to save his family. I know, right? Rick Sanchez making a selfless decision, it hits you right in the feels and shows just how far the show will go to challenge what we think we know about these characters. This episode isn't just pushing boundaries, it's smashing through them with a portal gun. It takes a space wedding and turns it into a gut-wrenching family drama with galaxy-wide consequences. It forces us to think about some heavy stuff. What does family really mean? How far would you go for the people you love? When do your past actions catch up with you? We're right there with the Smiths as everything falls apart. We feel their fear, confusion, and desperation. It's not just watching characters anymore. We're emotionally invested in their struggle, and that ending, Rick's sacrifice isn't just shocking, it changes the entire show's dynamic. We see the invincible Rick become vulnerable, human. It's a moment that proves Rick and Morty isn't afraid to take risks, challenge its audience, and make us uncomfortable. The Wedding Squanchers isn't just entertainment, it's a masterclass in storytelling that leaves you reeling long after the credits roll. So we've covered some pretty wild episodes of Rick and Morty, huh? These aren't just average cartoon shenanigans, they're mind-bending adventures that make you question everything. Rick and Morty takes crazy sci-fi concepts and uses them to hold up a mirror to our own lives. We might not be hopping dimensions, but we all deal with family drama and moral dilemmas. Next time you watch, look beyond the burps and catchphrases. There's heavy stuff hiding in those wacky animations. Have you ever felt like Rick or Morty, swept up in chaos? Think about it. You might learn something about yourself. Or maybe you'll just laugh at Mr. Poopy Butthole again. Either way, Rick and Morty is a cosmic funhouse mirror, showing us our flawed, hilarious selves.